When King Uther died, there was confusion over who should rule. No one but Sir Ector and Merlin even knew there was a son who was heir to the throne. Heaven knows I wasn't aware of it. I knew only that the old king had left behind 2 daughters. The daughters were Morgana and Morgause, and they couldn't have been more different from one another. Morgana was a sorceress who used magic to heal persons who were ill. But the younger daughter, Morgause, was cruel and hungry for power. I remember Sir Ector saying that Morgause and her husband, King Lot, were an evil pair. It looked like war, for certain. It was at that time that our old castle teacher left us, and a week later, far to the south, in the city of Londinium, the wise man Merlin reappeared. He made a great magic, and in the middle of an empty square in the city there appeared a huge stone. Thrusting straight out of it, straight towards the sky, was the sword of Uther Pendragon, the old king who had died. And Merlin cut these words into the stone: "Whosoever pulleth this sword from this stone is right wise king of all England." Well, many tried to draw the sword forth, but no one could do it. No one could claim the throne. And then Merlin declared that there would be a great tournament to be held in the spring, and afterwards he promised that the true king would show himself. Morgause and Lot, who coveted the throne for themselves, were very angry, but they were afraid of Merlin's power, and they had to agree. When news of all this reached us, my brother Kay begged Sir Ector to allow him to fight in the tournament. I remember Kay said, "Just think, Father, all the greatest champions on one field. Please, let me be part of it." And so it came about. We all went, Kay as knight, and I as his squire, and I can't say who was more excited. Kay was inspired, fought in the very thick of things with spear and sword. Then along about noon, in the midst of it all, the blade of his sword snapped clean off from the handle. He fought his way clear and rode over to me, where I stood in front of our tent at the edge of the field. "Arthur, run back to our inn and get me another sword. Hurry!" So, off I ran as fast as I could. The streets of Londinium were empty. I swear that every soul in the city was there watching the tournament. At any rate, our innkeeper was, for I found the inn locked and shuttered tightly. Then I remembered that I had seen a sword on my way through the streets. It was sticking out of a statue, or a war monument or something. I hadn't paid much attention, really. I ran back, and I found the sword sticking out of a great stone. And because I approached it from behind, I did not see the words cut into the face of the stone. I put my hand on the hilt of the sword, and I pulled. The sword fairly flew out of that stone and into my hand. I suppose I would have wondered about it, but I was too busy thinking about Kay. I took the sword and rushed back to where Kay was waiting impatiently in our tent. "Here, Kay," I said, "I've brought you a sword." He stood very still suddenly. He just looked. Then he reached out and lifted the sword in his hand. Just then Sir Ector entered the tent. "Look, Father," said Kay, "look what I have. It's my sword. You know what this means, don't you?" But Sir Ector, that honest man, only looked him straight in the eye and asked him where he had gotten the sword. And after a moment, Kay said, Arthur brought it to me." The next thing I knew, we were back in the square in front of the stone. Sir Kay tried to put the sword back into the stone, but neither he nor Sir Ector could do it. For me, it went in as easily as it had come out. 3 times I replaced it and drew it forth again. Meanwhile, I had my back to the great square, and I did not see it silently filling up with people. At last I heard Sir Ector behind me say, "Enough." And still holding the sword in my hand, I turned, and there I saw Sir Ector and Sir Kay and hundreds of people, and they were all on their knees, bowing before me. I didn't understand. I think it was actually the most frightening moment of my life. "Father," I said, "Father, what are you doing? Get up." But he wouldn't. And then he said, "I am not your father." I don't understand. And then I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I turned, and there was our old teacher from the castle standing next to me. Only he looked somehow different. And I heard someone out in the crowd say, "Merlin. It's Merlin." And then Merlin said to me, "It is true. You are not the son of Sir Ector. You are the son of King Uther Pendragon, and in your hand you hold the sword of your kingship." And that is how I became king. For more titles from Jim Weiss and Well-Trained Mind Press, please visit us at jimweiss.com or welltrainedmind.com. Thank you for listening.